The story begins in a world where the automotive industry is at a crossroads. For more than a century, the global car market has been dominated by gasoline and diesel. Even as the world turned its eyes toward electric vehicles, powered by massive lithium-ion batteries, the system never truly broke free from its chains. Energy was still tethered to charging stations, still reliant on costly infrastructure, and still under the grip of oil and utility companies. But then something happened in Africa that no one saw coming. Something that has left the global auto industry in panic. A car designed not in Silicon Valley, not in Germany, not in Japan, but in Africa, running on free energy, charging itself, defying the rules of physics as the world knows them. At first, the whispers spread slowly, like rumors dismissed at a corporate boardroom table. But soon, engineers, journalists, and governments began to pay attention. In a modest workshop, a prototype emerged that challenged the very foundation of how we think about transportation. It wasn't sleek at first. It didn't come wrapped in polished chrome or luxury branding. But what it did was more important than appearances. It ran without fuel, without charging, without stopping. And suddenly, the billion-dollar investments of Tesla, Toyota, Volkswagen, and Ford began to look fragile. John, a seasoned automotive engineer from Detroit, couldn't believe his eyes when he saw the reports. He had spent decades working for one of America's biggest automakers, perfecting engines, calculating efficiency, and shaving seconds off performance tests. And now, he sat in his office, watching a video of an African-built car driving endlessly without stopping for a recharge. "This can't be real," he muttered, rewinding the clip over and over again. But the data, the test reports, and the on-ground demonstrations made it impossible to dismiss. Meanwhile, across the ocean in Germany, Maria, a senior executive at one of Europe's top automakers, was in a crisis meeting. On the screen before her was a chart showing plummeting investor confidence and rising questions from shareholders. The car industry had poured billions into EV development, massive factories for battery production, entire fleets designed for a charging-dependent ecosystem, and government subsidies tied to it all. And now, if Africa's free energy car proved scalable, everything would change. No one would need charging stations. No one would buy expensive batteries. No one would be chained to the grid. The media couldn't resist the story. Headlines spread across the globe. Africa redefines the future of driving. The free energy car that shocks the world. Detroit in panic as African innovation rises. Journalists flew to Africa, desperate to see the car in action. Among them was James, a British technology reporter who had covered Tesla's rise, Elon Musk's bold claims, and the battery wars between China and the United States. But nothing had prepared him for what he saw when he arrived in a small African town. The car itself was surprisingly modest. It didn't roar like a sports car or gleam like a luxury sedan. But when James stepped inside, he realized that it wasn't about aesthetics. It was about freedom. The dashboard displayed energy levels that never seemed to drop. The engine purred silently, with no exhaust, no fumes, no heat like a combustion engine. As they drove for hours across open roads, James kept waiting for the car to slow, to demand fuel, to ask for a charge. But it never did. The driver, a soft-spoken African inventor named David, smiled knowingly. "The world believes we are always behind," he said quietly, his hands steady on the wheel. "But sometimes, the future starts here." Back in Silicon Valley, panic turned into strategy meetings. Tech giants who had partnered with automakers on EV technology scrambled to understand what was happening. Was it real? Was it scalable? Could this African invention be bought, patented, or buried? Elon Musk himself was rumored to have requested private reports on the prototype. Behind closed doors, Tesla engineers debated whether this was the breakthrough they had been chasing, or a threat to everything they had built. In Tokyo, automakers who had bet heavily on hydrogen fuel cells faced a similar nightmare. Billions invested, decades of research, and suddenly an invention from Africa threatened to make their efforts irrelevant. One executive reportedly slammed his fist on the table, shouting, "If this is real, we are finished." But for the people of Africa, this wasn't just about business or competition. It was about rewriting the narrative. For too long, Africa had been seen as a consumer of technology, not a creator. This invention was proof that brilliance could come from unexpected places. Villages that had lived without stable electricity suddenly saw hope. A future where cars didn't need fuel, where roads didn't echo with the sound of engines, where pollution didn't choke the skies, felt within reach. Yet, not everyone welcomed the news. Powerful interests, oil companies, battery manufacturers, and governments invested in existing systems, saw this invention as a threat. Rumors circulated of offers being made to buy the technology, to silence the inventor, to control the patents. The struggle wasn't just technological. It was political, financial, and deeply personal. John, the Detroit engineer, decided to see the car for himself. He flew to Africa, driven by a mix of curiosity and fear. When he met David, he didn't know what to expect. But what he saw changed his life. Sitting in the passenger seat, driving through endless miles of countryside, John realized that this wasn't just innovation, it was liberation. The math didn't add up, the physics seemed impossible, but the reality was undeniable. "If this is what I think it is," John whispered, "then the world will never be the same." And so, the story of Africa's free energy car spread like wildfire. Scientists debated it. Engineers tried to replicate it. Investors scrambled to buy into it. But no matter what happened next, one truth remained. The future of driving had changed forever. Africa had forced the world to look again, to question assumptions, and to face the possibility that the greatest disruption in the auto industry had not come from billion-dollar labs or futuristic tech hubs, but from a place the industry least expected. And as the sun set over the African horizon, with the free energy car still driving, still unstoppable, one thought echoed across the globe: the age of fuel is ending.
The age of freedom is beginning.